Hey folks, greetings from the Offensive Security Group here at Secure IT 360, coming at you with a new episode of the Cyber Threat Perspective. Today you've got Spencer and myself, and we're going to be talking about AI. And guys, stay with me on this, okay? AI in the context of threat actors, and so this topic has been kind of beat to death just because it's a buzzword, but we're going to take an interesting approach and hopefully, pass on some interesting tidbits with you guys. Shout out to the person who requested this topic. You know who you are. And I know I also owe you a report and I'm working on it. So
Awesome.
we're working on a fun engagement with those guys, but they're big fans of the podcast. We really love working with them, and so that said, for those of you out there who have ideas for podcast topics, this episode exists because of a fan and a listener that wanted to hear about it. So we're diving into AI. I think that you would have to probably live under a rock somewhere to not notice what's going on in the just general field of IT with regards to what we're calling artificial intelligence, which I think is just an extension of large language models, right? And so, the common ones out there are ChatGPT, Grok. There's probably a million of them. Claude, yeah.
Perplexity.
We could probably spend 30 minutes just listing the platform.
Just naming them all.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But here's the question we want to answer today, right? How has this benefited threat actors in our world? And I think that we would be remiss to not understand that things that benefit us also benefit the bad guys. So how are they using it against us? What role does it play in their ecosystem? And those are going to be the things that we're going to talk about. And I think they kind of fall into three broad categories: social engineering, right? The threat landscape of your organization, which we have another episode coming on just that, by the way, but we will touch on it here. And then the last one will be, how it impacts the life cycle of things like CVEs and exploits and code and stuff like that. So, I want to pass the mic to you to start because I think you put the majority of this section together, and I want to hear your thoughts on, where this is going and how it's kind of impacted us.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned for the end, because I think at the end of this episode is kind of where I see the trend going from a threat actor perspective. So make sure you listen all the way through, so we can talk about something cholera, famous Colima, these fancy names, but these threat actors, by the way, is just ridiculous.
I miss the days of Fancy Bear and Slick Spider and all of that. Now we're actually like getting into names I can't pronounce.
Yeah, so they still have some of those, like Charming Kitten and Scattered Spider and those kinds of things. And if you're at Black Hat or DEF CON this week, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that by some of the firms out there, the EDR firms and stuff. But anyways, digressing from the marketing stuff, social engineering, deepfakes, voice cloning, phishing. So I think that's arguably, and we were talking before we went live, was that I think that's arguably probably the most impactful, or at least the most publicly talked about area where AI/LLMs are making waves, if you will, making an impact, if we want to stretch it to that, right? There's some interesting research and statistics that I just wanted to share quick, and this is from IC3 from December of 2024. The FBI warns that criminals now exploit generative AI to commit fraud on a larger scale, using AI tools to create highly believable fake content and reduce telltale errors in scams. This follows the trend of like this deepfake thing. So if you've seen like deepfake videos, one of the funniest ones is like Will Smith eating spaghetti. If you've seen like...
I have seen that. Yeah, the comparison of what it used to be versus what it is now. Yeah. And it's like, dude, that looks real.
And it's pretty wild how, and of course people have probably seen like the Stormtroopers or what's the other one? Bigfoot in the woods. There's a lot of these like generative AI type videos. Mm-hmm. Well, we have definitively seen instances where threat actors are using AI generated personas, if you will, people, humans, realistic humans. And it really comes in two forms, I see. One is like the video aspects of it, where you jump on a Zoom call and somebody has created some sort of deep fake persona or video or character that you're interacting with. And then the other is voice. Voice is incredibly easy now to replicate if you have a soundbite from someone. So the scary side of this is like the consumer side of things, or like the personal side, where you get a phone call and it's like your daughter, but it's not really. It's a voice clone of your daughter, and it's a ransom, and there's bad things are happening supposedly. All the way to what happened in 2024 with this firm called AirUp. Apparently, there were threat actors that created deepfake impersonations of the CFO and some other colleagues, supposedly, and they used this to social engineer the company out of $25.5 million.
Jeez,
so this is not just theory. Like, this is truly happening. Maybe not in like the scale that we see ransomware, but this is definitely happening, and there are instances and reported cases where deepfakes and voice cloning has absolutely been used. And the last thing I'll say to kind of like intro this topic is I have tried this voice cloning stuff in the past before for social engineering engagements, and it's incredibly easy with like products like 11 Labs. You can do all sorts of wild stuff with these AI like voice platforms. So really powerful stuff. And some stuff that's actually happening in the news that we can call on from a statistics and report standpoint.
No, I absolutely agree. And it was theoretical for a while. I think there were a lot of leaders in the cyberspace that were saying, hey, this is coming, prepare yourself. The struggle here is a lot of the mechanisms by which we perform authentication for high risk transactions, right? Help desk things, for resetting MFA or whatever it is hinged in no small part based on either visual or audio validation of who someone is. And so now we're going to have to rethink that process, right?
Yep.
And so, dude, we actually are working with some clients who have had AI phishing incidents occur in their environment, and we're now trying to put processes and procedures in place to protect them.
One of the funny things that I found when I was doing this, and I shared it in our chat, but when I was playing around with these AI chatbots and these voice clones and AI voice platforms, is that, and this is something I think is kind of a takeaway for me from like a defensive standpoint, if we would, is if you think or you have a suspicion that you're talking to an AI chatbot or an AI clone or something like that, where it's like this automated thing, you can ask it to do something silly, like say the alphabet backwards or say the alphabet in reverse, and it might respond to that, right? And if it responds to that, obviously, like, that's not a real human, that kind of thing, and you can kind of tell, but like give it a prompt or something. If it is a real human, they'll just laugh at you, or if it is an AI generated system, you'll probably get some telltale signs of it. But also, like, having a safe word or a safe phrase or something like that with your family is probably an important thing, depending on your threat model, right? So telling your family, hey, if I call and I'm like asking for money, or I said I'm in jail, or there's a ransom on one of the kids, like, here's what I would say in that situation. So those are some of the takeaways for me from like a defensive side of things, of like how to handle that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the emergency word or the safe word. So like that is something that I did with my family when the kids were younger. And so, to kind of accomplish that same thing, right? An authentication word is really what it is. And I highly recommend people do that. And there are lots of ways to combat this, having, a piece of information only that person would know. Right.
Yep.
And so like right now, it's actually funny. I'm working with one of our larger clients, and we're setting me up for remote access to their environment. And what they now do for help desk authentication, and this is wild, I've never seen this before, but I love it. They asked me to email them a copy of my driver's license. Like, while I'm on the phone with them in real time, I had to email them a copy of my ID from my work email address. And that is multiple layers of proving that I am who I say I am, without having to distribute hardware tokens or do anything crazy. It's like, cool, man, at work, take a picture of your badge and send it to me.
Yep. Yeah. And I was talking to a law firm last year that had an incident where there was somebody that impersonated, a lawyer kind of thing, and they tricked the firm into hiring them. And there were many instances where the person said that some of their employees thought something was off because they would have video calls with them and they would make up excuses, right? Like why they couldn't be on video, or their camera was broken. Their dialect when they talked to them on the phone didn't really match up with like their name or what you would expect to be their nationality or demographics and that kind of thing. So this has been happening. It's not always, it's not like it's a push of a button thing. Like there's work involved in it. But the deepfake, the voice cloning, and like obviously the support for phishing, where you can just have perfect English, or perfect spelling, or perfect grammar, are the typical ways that we would detect a phishing scam with like the malformed language or bad grammar, misspellings. All that stuff is gone with the support of these LLMs.
Yeah. Even today, like the large platforms that do phishing training, like KnowBe4 I'm a huge fan of what they do. They do a good job. We use them here. But that is, if you go through their like how to detect phishing school, the ways that they don't work anymore. Like you said, right? All of those things, the misspellings and the improper grammar, like that's not a thing anymore. And so I think we're going to continue to see that evolution of all of these, right? The ability to do chatbots. And so like you have no idea that you're not on a chat with Amazon if you clicked on this link that was texted to you from Amazon support, and they will respond just like it is a real person and have you process that payment. So like there are a lot of opportunities here to kind of make social engineering more accessible to hackers that wouldn't otherwise be able to do this, right? And so we have witnessed a tremendous amount of success with social engineering via phone, where we speak English well enough, but we can call someone and just convince them to change a password or reset MFA or give up information about their location, and we do that routinely, and so that is going to become a common problem. We can no longer rely on those phone calls. And also I think there's another article you have in here in the show notes where they're talking about people who are getting jobs, like going through the interview process on video, by the way, and it's not them. They look like a completely different person. They speak differently, and this stuff is in real time. So they're getting employed, and now they're becoming an insider threat into your organization. All right. So quick pause. For those of you that are listening, please leave a review for the podcast. Really helps us out. You can either just click a rating, or if you leave, an actual review, that really helps us out even more. And so, it takes just a few short seconds to do that for us, and it really helps us out. So, do that. And if you're in the market for pen testing, we know a guy. Right, we know multiple guys and a girl apparently. So we know people. So if you need something like that, hit us up. But then I want to quickly pivot to another aspect of this, and for me personally, I am most interested in this aspect, and that is the speed at which bad guys can leverage AI to either reverse engineer patches, reverse engineer CVEs, or build exploit code. So before AI, I think we had gotten to a point where we were like 72 to 96 hours turnaround time from either when a CVE was published or when a patch was released. They could reverse engineer this and build a working proof of concept or build a working functional exploit. That time is going to go to effectively zero now, because these AI models have the capability to take all of this input and very quickly churn through this and kick out a working exploit in these environments. And so I think that is a not maybe frequently discussed aspect of AI, but it is absolutely fascinating to me. And then, the other piece, and then I'll kick it back over to you, Spencer, is, attacking the AI model or the AI platform directly. You mentioned that there's a Langflow AI CVE that came out this year. So not only are we giving them the tools to be quick about this and be effective, but we're also creating a larger attack surface.
Yeah. And this is something that, so in 2023, it was like end of 2023, like around November, I was doing an internal pen test, and there was a vulnerability in the Splashtop streamer software, which is like a remote access tool. There was no exploit code available for it, but there was a CVE, and there was details related to the CVE, and it was found by somebody at Mandiant, Ronnie Samuelson. And I actually used ChatGPT at the time to create an exploit in C++. Now, I don't have a ton of experience with C++. I did it in college a little bit. I took a few programming courses that we did projects in that. So I knew the language well enough to know like what a variable looked like and kind of how the syntax looked. But I could by no means create an exploit in C++. I used ChatGPT to create an exploit in like an hour of just copy and pasting and then copy and pasting error messages into ChatGPT. And it actually created an exploit for me in about an hour's worth of work in 2023, by the way. So 2 years ago now, we were able to do that. And, you know, that was very early on. But now with Claude Code and GitHub Copilot and all of these platforms, you can literally, and I had said this on Twitter the other day, or maybe it was today, it was like, there's Vibe malware now. Like people are Vibe coding full-blown production applications.
Yes.
People are Vibe coding malware now. Like that's actually happening. And I asked on Twitter, like, does anybody have any interesting use cases of like AI malware and things like that? Somebody else shared an instance where threat actors were actually using AI to generate the malware on the fly. So like their implant generated the malware on the fly. So there was no like malware or malicious code on the endpoint. It was just like this implant that generated on the fly and then executed it through AI or an LLM. So pretty staggering stuff. And to your point, like the time it takes to develop these things now, like you can vibe code a complete application in minutes now with all these platforms. Think about what you can do with malware, with, you know, security research. Imagine if you had the entire code base to a firewall product and you ran it through an LLM or an AI platform and asked it to spit out all the vulnerabilities, right?
Yep.
Some of these threat actors have source code. They have kind of the behind the scenes code level access to some of these products and platforms, or they have reversed engineered them. And they're using AI and LLMs to increase the speed at which they can discover and abuse those vulnerabilities. So I think this is a big area of research for a lot of not just organizations, but nation states as well. This is something that definitely our adversaries are most definitely working on, and probably US is as well. And the last thing I'll say is on the exploit thing is, if you have an AI product like a chatbot, or you have some sort of AI integration, imagine if there is a flaw in that application, right? It's a supply chain risk, just like if there was a vulnerability in a Python library or whatever else. So these AI libraries can also be impacted as well and have downstream implications, just like a supply chain, a very typical supply chain attack would be. So they're attacking the platforms, they're jailbreaking the platforms, they're using the platforms in kind of unique ways, especially when it comes to malware as a service and those kinds of things, which we'll get into a bit more.
Yeah. And I mean, I've used it for proof of concept code for web apps before, right? And so, you know, most of the time when we're doing web app pen testing, we're not, you know, we'll find a flaw and we'll document the flaw and then we kind of move on, you know, but there are times where the client's like, hey, what is this actually like? What functionally does this create from a risk perspective? Yep. And so, dude, like my time to write a POC for stored cross-site scripting and exfiltrating cookies, or, you know, just simple stuff like that, has gone from an hour and a half or half an hour to 2 minutes.
Yep.
You want a POC, dude? Stand by, you know, and then it's super easy. Now it doesn't, like you said, you alluded to it earlier, it doesn't remove completely your need to interpret and understand code, right? If you're blindly copying and pasting stuff out of ChatGPT, you are wrong in a big way. And so it has been, in my experience, you know, on all across all platforms, there's a lot that is wrong about. But it still still shrinks the time. And that's what's most interesting to me, is like you can do more with less by leveraging these platforms in that space.
Yep. So. Yeah, the jailbreaking, if you will, is always kind of an interesting use case. You know, getting ChatGPT to give you things that it shouldn't, or is against its guidelines or boundaries or whatever. And there's something called legal pwn, which is a technique to hide malicious code within fake legal disclaimers. So that's something I found is like, creating, apparently some AI platforms will just accept it if it's in like legal language or legal disclaimers. So people are figuring out unique ways to kind of bypass some of the controls and restrictions in these AI platforms. And essentially what that allows a bad guy to do, or a threat actor to do, is maybe they can use ChatGPT to like actually generate ransomware code. Whereas if you just tell it to generate you a ransomware POC, it might not create it for you. So there are ways to kind of escape some of those guardrails using these different techniques. But the other thing I think is interesting, and it's something that I think it will probably become a trend, if not already, is this malicious AI as a service, I guess as they call it, which is there are platforms like WormGPT. There's another one called, I forget the name of it, but FraudGPT. So there's this WormGPT, FraudGPT. They're essentially like the threat actor ready ChatGPT, right? Like imagine a ChatGPT for cyber criminals. That's what these are, apparently.
Yeah, dude.
People are creating these and selling them on the dark web and kind of the backdoor forums where cyber criminals hang out, and they can be used to generate malware, to generate like phishing emails or like social engineering prompts, things like that. So that is an interesting aspect of this as well, is that just like, well-intended developers are creating their own ChatGPT type bots, threat actors are as well for their nefarious deeds.
Yep. So I have actually done that. I've actually created my own ChatGPT variant that does not have guardrails. And so it makes it easier to do some of the work that we do. But that is, and I can remember when ChatGPT was first released, like version 0.01 or whatever it was, and we all like in our group kind of got together and we were like, this is a big deal. Like this is a substantial change in just all of human civilization. Like this is a pivot point for whatever the future holds. And my biggest concern had always been like, all right, cool, we can use it for good. What if we use it for bad? It's a double-edged sword, right? And so we're starting to see that really come to fruition now. And I don't know that there's a lot we can do about it, right? So be curious to see where it leads.
Yeah, I think it's one of those technological like snowballs that like it has started and it's not going to stop, and nothing is going to I don't see anything even slowing it down. It's like it's just the pace of the creativity that it allows for, and how much money especially is in the ecosystem, like how much OpenAI is worth, and how much the data that it's training, or how much the trained data is worth as well, is an interesting perspective too.
I agree.
So it is quite literally a gold rush right now in the AI kind of ecosystem. And as everything with money in any gold rush, like it's not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, can't put the cap back on the bottle, so to speak, or the cork back.
The genie back in the bottle.
Yeah. However that goes.
Yeah.
But, one of the other things that I do want to talk about very briefly is, you have a mention of a specific North Korean threat actor that's using these large language models to get jobs, right? We kind of alluded to it earlier, so that is fascinating to me. With remote work being as prolific as it is, and how do you validate that the person that you're hiring, especially overseas, right, is actually even a real person now?
Yeah, especially development, people who do software development or software engineering roles. So this is some data and statistics from CrowdStrike's latest threat report. There's a threat hunting report, and then there's a global threat report, I believe, that came out this year that has some information about this, just where I got some of the research. But so these North Korean IT workers, they will kind of mask their poor English skills. They will hold multiple jobs, and they will use these Gen AI tools, LLMs, et cetera, to help with their communication. So I'm imagining them getting an email, putting it in ChatGPT, and then spitting out a response kind of thing. So imagine, North Korean threat actors holding, 3, 4, 5 jobs at a time that all pay pretty well, probably. Software engineering, software development pays pretty well, depending on the organization, right? So apparently, once these kind of fraudulent IT workers get hired, they're using ChatGPT, they're using Copilot, they're using these AI platforms, LLMs, etc., not only for their daily tasks of like emails and admin and stuff like that, but for their job duties too. So I'm imagining them like firing up VS Code and like actually submitting pull requests to GitHub projects and like actually contributing to it. And so this is a really interesting case where the AIs and the LLMs make it incredibly easy, or much easier than it would be to like learn another language and learn the mannerisms and learn how to like function in an English society when you're not used to it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So for this particular, are they keeping the job? Like that is the goal, is to just get the paycheck, or are they like pivoting to data exfiltration, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, my understanding based on what I researched so far was like they're holding multiple jobs, partly because of the income. So like imagine getting $250,000 for a software development role, but times like 4 or 5.
Right.
Now all of a sudden one, IT worker can bring in $1 million in revenue to the cause, right?
Yeah. Keep going. I'm taking notes. Keep going. Yeah. Tell me more about this.
and there have been cases of that happening before when, back in COVID times, like not necessarily nation state threat actors, just people kind of abusing the system, right? Of having multiple jobs. And actually there was a case where somebody had gotten a job to multiple places, but he outsourced it to somebody else. And it was like these weird things. But that's part of what I understand is happening is they're using it for, the revenue and kind of feed that back to the home country.
That's wild. Yeah.
Some of it might also be like espionage as well.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Is that they're probably targeting specific organizations. So you get both, right? You get the money for the job, but then you also get the insider,
Yep. Access. And this is apparently not just like North Korea. This is, there are Russian cyber threat actors that have been kind of tracked or attributed to be using AI and LLMs because of like how well structured their code is or their communications are and things like that. So there are, speculation that there are other threat actors and threat groups using the power of these platforms to kind of enhance their capabilities or enhance their operations.
Yeah, super cool in a horrifying kind of way. All right, so let's start wrap up. And is there anything? I know there's some other stuff in here we have not talked about yet, so I want to kind of open the floor since these are your notes. But I think at a high level we hit most of the things that I had in mind for this. So is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think the last thing I'll say is it seems to be that threat actors are using it in predictable ways, I would say. None of this is like, oh, I didn't think of that, or
right. Exactly.
Not super novel in any way.
Yeah.
Like obviously the social engineering implications are huge. Exploitation of the platforms, right? Jailbreaking it and then just using it to be a better worker, which is like how we all use it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Like how do I send this email without sounding passive aggressive to my boss or like whatever the case may be? I'm imagining these North Korean IT workers are like, oh man, this email really ticked me off. How do I, send it in a non-condescending way? But I think most of this stuff is not unexpected.
Yeah.
I think the hard part for us as kind of defenders is knowing what we should actually care about, right? Which is the whole point of us like making content and doing this podcast is like, there's a lot of noise out there. So what should we focus on? And when we do the security implications of AI, I think that'll be a good place for those conversations.
I agree.
But I think that's part of like this whole stuff that's going on is like, there's a lot of like AI stuff.
Yeah.
And there's probably like a very finite amount that defenders should really be focused on that you'd be able to do to like meaningfully impact your security program or your environment and your users and things like that.
Yeah, I just think that the margin of error has gotten smaller, right? Like if we're to summarize all of the things we talked about today, we're moving faster with exploits, which means you have to be faster to patch or to resolve security issues. We're taking social engineering, which has already been a threat for most of our adult lives, and we're making it more effective. So we're really just bolstering the threats that already exist, meaning that we have to be more strict. You used to be able to get away with kind of a half-hearted approach to some of these risks, and that's not going to be the case anymore. We have to take them very seriously, and we have to have comprehensive solutions because AI has effectively made the things that we already do better, and it means the bad guys are better too, right? So I don't see anything so far, and it's one of the reasons that I haven't done any like public speaking on AI. I haven't really chased this topic, is because my personal takeaway has been it's the same threat. It's just more threatening, right? So we just need to go back and do the basics really, really well with it in mind. And I think we're going to be okay. But we're going to talk more about that on another episode. So
yeah, it's definitely one of those situations where if you feel you're behind, you probably are. And this whole AI thing, like you said, is going to make attacks easier. It's going to make them faster, quicker, more accurate. And if you are behind the 8 ball, now is the time to kind of get ahead of it.
I completely agree. All right, folks, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening and or watching. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends. We appreciate that. Check us out at offsec.blog and securit360.com. See you guys next week.